Hey everyone, Dave Greco here, and welcome back to the channel. So today I want to go over some pretty easy steps to adding some more depth to your illustrations. There's a couple of things I really think about when I look at my main character and kind of put them into the scene. I get a lot of questions on how to deal with the background, how much detail should you put in. And so I have a piece kind of prepared for us to look at today, and some things I think about, and some really pretty simple ways you can just add a couple stages of depth to it to really make your pieces pop a little bit more, to just make them look like they fit in a world. So let's not waste any time about it. Let's pop over to Photoshop and then let's go through it. All right, here we are back in Photoshop. And so I'm gonna try to go through this the best way I can, in kind of the clearest way I know to talk about it. So I'm gonna take a piece that was done for Hearthstone, quite a few months ago, and just some simple things that I think about, and just adding a little bit of simple shapes and kind of figuring out where your light is to really add just a little bit of depth. And this stuff is actually important. I know even for Hearthstone, this is a big deal for Blizzard to add these kind of, these, you really want to focus on your kind of foreground, your mid and your background, all that stuff. And so try to break it up, and let's dive in and see what we can do here. So basically I've prepared this piece a little bit and kind of see what we're actually talking about here. So when I look at a piece, I have my central character right in the center. It usually has the highest contrast. It's the most crisp, the highest detail. It's where you really want the person's eye to really look at, right? And at the same time, I put this in here just to kind of show that we really have this type of vignetting as far as the light coming back to the center. And you can kind of see it on the edges all here. How we're really trying to focus kind of more of a brighter light contrast behind the character to kind of make it pop a little bit more. So I've actually broken the character out, I actually painted behind it, and so we can kind of identify what we're looking at here. So I would have this character kind of sitting what I would consider type of this mid area. And so you're like, all right, do I just do like a solid gradient in the background? How do I add just a little bit of depth without spending a ton of time? And it's detail that you don't want it to take away from the foreground character either. And so you can actually break it up into a couple of them, and I kind of did that right here. You can see that this right here would almost be kind of like the mid behind the character, right? All right, and here we have pretty much a shot of the mid with just some slight gradient that's kind of considered the far background. And then if we put the main character back over it, it's almost like it kind of stops, like what is going on back there. I think the contrast and colors are working properly, but there should be a little bit to add. Have this extra layer back here, and really all it is taking just some like lighter values than the character, and it's almost like you kind of have like a fog going in the background, right? And you're kind of going in there and creating shapes to it that don't really take away from the character, and we can do this a little bit of painting right on top, right here. And so these kind of tree branches, they're kind of, fitting the kind of direction of the composition that you're looking in. But it's really just pushed back, and honestly, it's just a bunch of abstract, like kind of stick shapes. It doesn't take away. And it just adds like that tiny bit of depth that it's the forest back there, but you don't have to really spend a ton of time going through it. So there's a couple things that I just always focus on. One, that kind of main character that kind of sits. They're not usually totally in front of you. Sometimes I have objects like this, say this like this log and these mushrooms. You could actually break that out and make it feel like that sits in one plane a little bit closer to you. You could depth of field it, you do whatever you want. But it's this main kind of character sitting right here, and what's going to happen in these kind of planes that exist behind the character and how they're broken up. This is something I do a lot though, is actually erase that main character, kind of create something quick that's happening behind, and then I'll kind of copy and paste the character back on top, and just to make sure it's nice and clean, that the colors all work, and that it's not fighting with the character. So ultimately, just think of those three things: that the plane that the character is sitting on, almost like one more plane kind of sitting behind them. They're pretty close, like all these trees back here. They're not taking away from the main character either. They're almost like framing the character nicely. And then do one more stage of some kind of, more kind of abstract, less detailed objects, kind of in a plane right behind. And that is usually enough. Especially on stuff like this where they have to be presented pretty small. it's totally going to fit perfectly back there. I know this might seem kind of simple. This is a question I do get a lot on kind of tackling backgrounds for, you know, what is ultimately a character driven piece. And it's really just those things that I think about, is just that character, a couple planes of environment behind, and that could really make your piece pop. And it's pretty quick to do. I think you could totally try that on a bunch of character pieces. Really think about how that contrast and values are going to affect your main character right there. And yeah, that's it. And so I hope this guy's helped you just a tiny bit into pushing your own work and your own illustrations. This is, like I said, I know I keep saying it sounds simple, but like no one ever said these little things to me before, and I felt like it took me like years just to figure out these small things. And if someone had just told me, it would have saved me a lot of time and effort. And so this is the type of stuff I think it's really important to get out to all y'all. So thank you so much for hanging out. I know this one was pretty short, but you know, if you like this type of art content, always subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot. That support is amazing. And like always, I'll see y'all in the next one.